What treasures that we 100% know existed still haven't been found? Tomb of Alexander the Great, Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Funny thing is, they're all probably buried in Alexandria beneath the modern city. I saw a documentary recently where an archaeologist was looking for his tomb and dug in a park in Alexandria, finding a bust is Alexander buried very deep and further collapsed caverns, but those caverns are under blocks of flats and loads of development, so I have no idea if they'll ever be able to explore them. My wife is from Alexandria. Her grandfather was an archaeologist there who used to tell her about the constant struggle between excavations and city building. The whole area is an ancient site, literally built over the old city by ancient sites, so they quickly built over everything because if they discovered something, they wouldn't be able to. A lot of bribes and looking the other way, or there would be no modern city there. Crazy. I went to college beside that museum in Boston that got robbed. They never found the thieves or the paintings. The famous Gardner Museum theft. No one knows what happened to the paintings still. Yes, it drives me crazy because a part of me thinks it was just some thugs that had no idea how to sell them, and the paintings are rotting away somewhere. That's what the FBI believes. The paintings were transported to Philadelphia in an attempt to sell them. Organized crime will sit on things for years and years. Hell, look at religious artifacts that were looted from other cultures or the British Museum. The tomb of the first Qin emperor of China exists, and we know exactly where it is. The only part of the site that's been extensively excavated for artifacts is the famous terracotta army. The main tomb itself is still completely sealed, and no attempts have been made to open it since legend states that it was filled not only with mountains of treasure inside, but also mechanically operated rivers of flowing mercury, made to resemble the major rivers and bodies of water in China, and booby traps to protect the massive subterranean complex, which has been measured to be around 1/4 the size of the Forbidden City using ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques. Apparently, archaeologists and scientists have found disturbingly high levels of mercury in the ground around the tomb, giving some air of legitimacy to the legends, which also raises concerns about the legend of booby traps. There's also concern that we do not currently have the technology and knowledge to protect artifacts we'd excavate from outside air and contamination, just like how earlier excavations of the terracotta army led to their original colorful paint being destroyed shortly after being unearthed. Edit. Since this comment got so popular, I'll add on the heirloom seal of the realm, also known as the Imperial Seal of China. Physical possession of the object basically legitimized a claim to the mandate of heaven, and thus rule over China. It was created in 221 BC, passing along through various emperors and factions until sometime between around 1500 and 1000 years ago. There's several theories on how, when, and where it was lost, but we'll probably never get an answer unless some farmer happens to stumble on a fairly big square hunk of intricately carved jade in some field and realizes what it is. Also, here's a wiki page to lose a few hours browsing through. Things like this I find really funny. Like the people who made the rivers of mercury were humans just like us. They made these mechanically operated flowing rivers of mercury with no intention for later humans to see them at all. Hello, fellow humans. Why would you do this? We just want to appreciate the treasures. Shit like this can ruin a whole day for me. How long did they work on those rivers of mercury? Was a majority of someone's life's work in that place we will never see? Where did they get all that mercury? How the fuck does a river of mercury work anyway? How do you get it to flow consistently? Maybe that one is more obvious. I don't know what technology they had back then. So many more questions. Also, it would be pretty fascinating to see their depiction of the rivers in China, given how much they have probably changed or rerouted throughout the years. The 1715 Spanish treasure fleet wreck will almost certainly never be 100% recovered, meaning there's still some out there. There is a pretty aggressive company with a fleet of underwater drones, and researchers find treasure ships banked by private investment partnerships. Deep Ocean Search recovered tens of tons of silver coins from City of Cairo, the deepest ocean treasure recovery, and turned it over to the UK government to get their salvage share. There are some amazing Spanish treasure wrecks, but their government says they are warships, and the gold and silver they took from native peoples and enslaved to extract more is government property, so professional treasure hunters are not focusing on finding those. Portrait of a young man by Raphael. Missing since the end of World War II, all signs point to it having been sold for traveling money by Nazi Hans Frank. I'm convinced that the majority of missing artwork from WW2 is held by private collectors, like that missing Picasso painting that just happened to be spotted in the living room of the former First Lady of the Philippines. Tomb of Genghis Khan. I heard a theory that he didn't have an actual tomb, they just left his body somewhere to be eaten. I recently read a biography of Khan called Genghis Khan and the Creation of the Modern World. In it, the authors conclude that, most likely, he didn't have a tomb, as others here have said. What he did have was his spirit banner, which was held as a treasured artifact by the Mongolian peoples. Whether or not it truly belonged to him, I'll leave to experts. It was seized by the Soviets during the invasion of Mongolia in the 1920s and disappeared. Likely, Imo, destroyed by the Soviets in an attempt to quell resistance there. Likely, but not definitively. King John's crown jewels, lost while crossing the Wash on the east coast of England over 800 years ago. I'm surprised this is so far down. Maybe they were found and melted down, or never lost and just stole. If they're still out there and are discovered, they would be worth a fortune. $190 million worth of Bitcoin on a hard drive in a particular landfill. I'll even go a step further. 1.1 million Bitcoin are sitting in their creator's, Satoshi's, wallet, untouched. No one knows who he is or if he's even alive. I want to clarify that one more time. Not $1 million worth of Bitcoin, 1.1 million Bitcoin. That's $48,334,539,000. Flooding the market with that much Bitcoin would assuredly cause the value of the Bitcoin to drop a ton, but you could undoubtedly get hundreds of millions out of it. The missing Fabergé eggs. There are about 7 still missing, and only an old black and white photo remains of some of them, along with their descriptions. 7 eggs in the Imperial series are missing. 1886, the hen with sapphire pendant egg, last seen in 1922. 1888, the cherub with chariot egg, last seen in 1922. May have been exhibited in New York City in 1934. 1889, the Necessaire egg, sold by Wartsky in 1952, has not been seen since. 1897, the mauve egg, photo frame surprise, still extant. 1902, the Empire nephrite egg. The provenance of the found nephrite egg is contested. 1903, the Royal Danish egg. 1909, the Alexander III commemorative egg. The enormous golden menorah from the Second Temple. The Romans took it after sacking Jerusalem. Some people think it's being hidden by the Vatican, but I think more likely it was melted down and will never be found. It is far more likely that it is somewhere in modern-day Turkey. According to Procopius, Belisarius reclaimed it from the Vandals in Tunis in 533, who had looted it in the sacking of Rome a century earlier, though there is no record of it being sent back to Constantinople, so it might still be in Tunis. If it went to Constantinople, it's most definitely been melted down and turned to coins. Almost nothing made it out of the Fourth Crusade. This one really isn't talked about as much as it should. In 1996, billionaire couple Marvin and Kay Lichtman, who collected tons upon tons of priceless items, art, chess sets, Fabergé eggs, etc., were murdered by a glass installer that they hired. Before burning the house down, the glass installer made off with as much of the couple's riches as he could haul away. Shortly after, he tried to flee to avoid prosecution, and before he was caught, 3 men involved with the salvage operation at the scene were arrested for peddling items that were salvaged and they stole. Most of Lichtman's collection, including the items stolen by the glass installer who murdered them, have never been found.